Springboks, All Blacks, been a lot of build-up, a lot of chat, a lot of analysis, very few personnel changes. Rob, fly half personnel changes, I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it caught me by surprise, I must say. Look, I'm a big Handré Pollard fan. I think that he did acceptably, considering he's a 20-year-old, in those 2 games against Argentina where the Bok pack was violently on the back foot. I mean, how unnerving must it be for a rookie fly half watching your pack retreating like that in the scrums, and having just inside you a scrum half in Ruan Pienaar who hasn't been in the best of touch, and a lot of people believe that perhaps the Boks should have shaken the bag a little bit at scrum half. Then again, it's indicative, I think Garen might agree, that depth in the scrum half position, while the great Fourie de Preer is injured, is not fantastic, and Heineke Meyer clearly isn't convinced about the merits of Kobus Reinach or Francois Hougaard, so he's stuck with Ruan Pienaar as his experienced scrum half. So at least you've got one experienced halfback, although he's not in good form. But it was a bit of a curveball actually, dropping Morné Steyn. I thought, yeah, there would be certainly some flack from Meyer. You know, almost sort of like the naughty schoolboy having to go to the headmaster's study for a few lashes with a cane for that terrible error, which did probably cost the Boks the game in Australia. So there was going to be a backlash, but you know, he's been so faithful to Morné Steyn before that I thought he might sort of give him that little sort of, you know, rap on the knuckles and move on. In other words, keep him in the mix for a game in Wellington, which is, you know, swirling winds, possibility of rain. I see it looks as though there's going to be rain ahead of the game, which means it could be a wet pitch even if it doesn't rain during the match. So I thought he'd go for the more conservative option. Having said that, Pollard has got a broad game. He can play both kinds of rugby. You know, he's a good defender as well. I think he's a more stout defender than Morné Steyn. That might have been a consideration for him coming back into the mix. But what an opportunity! You know, if he cracks it in this game, if he's very influential, whether the Boks win or lose, then he might book a sort of a much more stable passage in the jersey right through to the World Cup next year. So a massively important game for the Springboks in terms of assessing that fly-half channel.
I mean, we know what Pollard is capable of. You know what he's done for the baby Boks. But I mean, in a game as big as this, I mean, do you think it was a wise move?
No, I don't think so. You know, there's no doubting that he's our future. I'm just not sure he's our present right now. You know, I would have liked to have seen him sort of starting the matches on our end of year tour. You know, I was quite shocked that he was the only change that Heineke Meyer decided to make. You know, we talked about changes up front, at scrum half, perhaps in the centres, but we didn't really ever think that Morné Steyn would pay the price for that last-minute blunder, you know, against the Wallabies.
Yeah.
You know, for Pollard to actually be better than Steyn, he has to kick every single penalty. You know, he's got to put over the odd drop, and he's got to ignite that back line. I just don't see him doing that. You know, he might play well, he might be more attacking, he might take the ball to the gain line. But then if he goes and misses all those penalties, we're not a team that scores 4 tries. There's no way we're going to score 4 tries against this All Blacks team. They haven't let anyone score, you know, close to 4 tries.
Unless they score 7 and we get 4.
Yeah. That's also possible. So, you know, I just don't see what he brings significantly different to Morné Steyn. Sure, he's younger, you know, he might be bigger, he might be a slightly better defender. But, you know, it's sort of implying that South Africa's game plan for this weekend is going to be one of not kicking as much as we did in the past. Sure, New Zealand would love it if we did kick because they're one of the better counter-attacking teams in the world. So, you know, but New Zealand will have looked at the South African team and wondered why. I heard the All Blacks coach on the radio this morning talking up Pollard, how fantastic he was, and sort of giving him a false sense of security. But for sure they have a game plan for him. You know, those loose forwards of New Zealand's will get to him, and they'll get to him a little bit late and niggle him and hold him down and push his head into the ground and sort of thing, and sort of give him a welcome to Wellington. You know, he's got no real form to talk about. You know, he did really well for the Baby Boks in New Zealand. I think that's the only reason sort of Heineke Meyer sort of, you know, going New Zealand, he played well, he will play well again there, because, you know, even though he played the 2 games against Argentina, he was taken off, I think, in the 50th minute of the second test. You know, he was woeful. He was kicking the ball over the show, out on the full, over the dead ball line. You know, he hasn't played any rugby since then. It's been a couple of weeks with the bye week. I'm not too sure, coming from completely out of the squad for last weekend, what he's done in the off week to warrant a start. There was no talk about him being injured, why he wasn't on the bench last weekend. So very surprised that Morné Steyn isn't actually on the bench, just in case something goes wrong. You know, Patrick Lambie's on the bench, and he's done absolutely nothing to warrant a spot. I mean, I don't know when last he actually played a full game of rugby. Honestly, I have no clue. It's been that long. He's been out injury, some of it not his fault, but, you know, through injury and stuff. So I'm a bit worried. worried in the fly-half position. I'm worried in a number of key positions. Scrum half, as we talked, Ruan Pienaar starting again. Hougaard on the bench. Kobus Reinach, poor chap, he's carrying tackle bags. This is doing nothing for his rugby. He could be back at the Sharks, helping them out. He's been on the tour for 5-6 weeks now. Done absolutely nothing for them. So, I'm a bit worried about Willie le Roux. He's really going to have a better game this weekend than he did last weekend. He's somehow kicked the ball instead of running with it. He's a one player with X factor. Kicked the ball out, I think, 3 or 4 times on the full. Not Willie le Roux type rugby that we've become accustomed to. Jean de Villiers playing in his 100th game. We've got this curse of the 100 test. I think he's the 4th player now, I think, Rob.
Yeah.
Only won one. I don't think he's going to be the next one to win in his 100th game. So a lot of issues. And then again, from an All Black point of view, this is certainly not their best team. They're struggling with a lot of injuries. If you quickly go through their team, no Tony Woodcock, no Dan Carter, no Sam Whitelock, no Luke Romano, Jerome Kaino, Liam Messam. They're missing a ton of players. Any other day, if you looked at the two teams, you'd say this is not the strongest All Black team ever put out on the field. If there's a game we're going to win, it's this one, even though it's away from home. But something tells me we've still got very little chance of winning this game, which is sort of indicative of our rugby and the confidence that they have in their team.